Okay, are we getting any better now? Is this working any better? We're continuing to check our settings here to be sure that everything is up. Okay, now? Okay, we've identified what the problem was. We've identified the problem. It was with a mute button on StreamYard that had been unmuted, and I guess one of the cursors passed over it and muted again. Thanks very much. I appreciate it very much, sir. Thank you for giving me that heads up. So let's kind of go back and let's kind of go back and start all over, as they say, take two. I am John Self. I'm a former executive recruiter. I spent 27 years in global executive search, and I've interviewed people all across the United States. I've worked in 6 countries on 4 different continents, and it's been a great thrill for me in that career. Thank you very much, Amayana. Appreciate that. Hopefully I'm not mispronouncing your name. So today we're talking about the big overarching idea in executive recruiting, particularly job search. This is really key to your success. It's not enough to go in and be successful in a job search and just don't make any mistakes. Don't use a lot of uhs or ahs or number of knows, and not make any stumbles in your answer. That's not good. And that's not being a good interview. Being a good interview is where you connect with the client, where you share how your experience, your skills, and your value will benefit them, will help them solve their problem. And that is the big idea for today. So however, when you are in the job interview, you're probably dealing with this kind of stuff. You've lost your job. You're living paycheck to paycheck. A lot of Americans do. So don't let anybody get upset about that. There's limited or no severance. The companies now are not offering the severance they did during the pandemic. You're unprepared for a job search because you really haven't been in the market 3, 4, 5 years. It has changed dramatically in that time. You have no plan. You don't really have a network. And as I said earlier, it just doesn't get much worse than that. And I can tell you, from personal experience, I've been there. Now, this is not the time to overreact. I mean, it's counterintuitive. Everybody says, "Oh my God, hair on fire. We got to do something." But you can't overreact, pushing yourself to get back into the market, whether you're ready or not. Going into the market prematurely when you're not ready is a waste of time and will extend your search because you're not going to be prepared to compete. So this is not the right response. And as I said, I understand because I've been there. Back in the 70s, when I was working for the national company that was setting up the helicopters and hospitals across the U.S., I was the national marketing manager, senior VP of business development. And we had attempted to buy the company from the parent. The deal fell apart at the last minute because of some financing issues. And this happens in a leverage buyout. They took us out in the parking lot and they shot us. They fired everyone. And they did come to me and say, "Look, you're the guy putting all these deals together. You can work for us, but you're going to have to move to Provo." Well, Provo is not exactly did not align with my religious convictions. Mormon people are great people. They have a very, very strong culture. But I was at the time practicing Roman Catholic, and they said, "Okay, well, Salt Lake City is very much different. You can live in Salt Lake City, but you got to come to Provo every day." Well, that's a 45-mile drive one way across the pass. And they get a lot of snow up there. And so, it was a tough situation. I had a new baby. My wife wasn't working at the time. She was on leave, and we had no money coming in. And when you have a lot of money coming in, you're making a lot of bonuses, you're putting some money away. But when you suddenly have a new baby, a wife that's not working, and you've got a car payment and you've got some other debt, all of a sudden, boom, you don't have a job. It's really scary. And I learned during that search, I learned some painful lessons, one of which is about my ego and my communication skills. Now, bragging, we all say bragging is you have to learn how to brag. The operative phrase is you have to learn how to brag. Bragging can be all about you if it's not done in the right way. Educating and explaining strengths, skills with relevant examples is about the employer. So bragging, if it's all about, hey, I can solve your problem, I can do that job, no problem, hire me. That's you. That's you saying, I need a job, I'm desperate. But when you start trying to show them how you can help them, how you can solve their problem, that is the right way to approach it. Now, we're going to talk about perspective today. Your perception. I've lost my job. My gosh, I need another job quickly. I don't care what it takes. I just need to get going. And so some people, they get fired. They immediately go home and start sending out resumes. Absolutely the worst thing you could possibly do. You know why? Because you're looking at it. Your perception is, I need to get money in the door. I need to take care of my family. I got to get a job in a hurry. I'm really good at what I do. And these people, they'll see this and they'll hire me. What you have to have is perspective, not perception. Perspective. Perspective is when you put yourself in the shoes of other people. When you take yourself out of your it's about me mode and get out into the marketplace and look at what people are coping with, look at the problems people are having, and then you see how you can help them solve their problems. That is perspective thinking. That is an absolute must in today's interviewing marketplace. So how do I adjust? Well, the great line my friend Peter Piccinini always likes to use. He's a great fan of the movie Moneyball. He said, "You either adapt or you die." Well, the first thing I would tell you to do, the first thing you have to do, especially if you've been a pretty successful business developer, or you've been a successful CEO or a senior executive, or been a successful manager or director, the first thing you got to do is subdue your ego. Finding a job today it's so much different. And relying on what worked for you in the past is not only dangerous, it's costly. It's dangerous in that it's going to keep getting you eliminated, and it's costly because it's going to extend your search. So what you have to do, even though you feel like the house is on fire and you're waiting for the fire truck to arrive, the first thing you got to do is develop a real plan. Not a panicked response. Your brand statement is your signature strengths and your signature strengths and what you've accomplished align with those signature strengths. That must be your guide. Okay, develop a plan. Where do I ultimately want to be? I've hit a bump in the road, a slight detour. What do I want my career to be when I end up? So then back and say, okay, what kind of job do I really need to approach here to get back on track with my career plan? And it's all about what and where, from the end goal to the targeted next step employers. So your big goal is at the top. At the time I retire, this is what I want to be doing. In healthcare, it's always, I want to be a CEO, or I want to be running a big Fortune 250 or 100. I want to run a public company. Okay, that's great. Those are great aspirational goals. What is it going to take for you to get there? Back it up and then immediately focus on your next step targeted employers. Those organizations you could apply to, work for, that would get you started on the right path towards your goal. But I lost my job. I need a job now. I'll sort that out later. This is the best time to do it. Because if you make a bad decision, if you just take a job for the sake of taking a job to get the money in the door, you're going to end up back out on the street sooner than you can possibly imagine. Identify the resources you're going to need and start being organized. Your biggest obstacles in this process: frustration breeds panic. Panic leads to a breakdown of your discipline in your execution. And I see this all the time. People get panicky and they start scatter shooting. Stay focused on your goals. Scatter shooting is not discipline. It's not productive. Yeah, scatter shooting is kind of what somebody gets, first goes hunting as a little boy, and then gets again and just starts shooting at everything because he's so pumped up. You got to get control. You got to get control of your ego. You got control of your emotions. You got to have a plan, and you've got to stay disciplined within the context of that plan. And you have to avoid people calling you who say, "Look, I know you were making 150 or 200,000, but I got this great job, and it's back near where you grew up, but it only pays 100,000, and it's a job you don't want. You never would have taken it under any circumstances." Don't waste your time. Don't invest time with the assumption something might work out. It won't. It won't. So don't avoid the time wasters. Now, listen, this is very key. A small change in how you approach the interviewing process, how you approach the job search process, can make a big difference. George Clooney tells the story about, he was well known in Hollywood, even when he started as a young actor. His mother and father were well known, they were respected. So it wasn't like he was just coming in off the street and somebody said, "Who is this Clooney guy?" But he was having trouble getting work, and he was starting to get really frustrated and really desperate. And he started, it was almost like, do you have anything for me? Can't you find something for me? And he said, I had to stop going to auditions thinking, I hope they like me. And I had to go in thinking I was the answer to their problem. That is it in a nutshell right there. If you go in thinking, God, I've got to really, hustle to get this job. Oh my gosh, I hope I can be successful. I hope they like me. I hope they hire me. No, be prepared. Do your research, rehearse, be confident, be self-aware. You are the answer to their problem. That's what they're looking for. They're not interviewing people to reject them. They're interviewing people to find someone. They're looking for a reason to hire you. And if you go in and just answer questions and hope it works out, you're not going to give them that reason. Now, here's the keys to making that subtle change. When you get started, there's two important questions that you need to ask right out of the bag. And listen, recruiting is not a one-way street. It's a two-way street. You have as much right to information as the recruiter has to get it from you, okay? So don't play that game. Oh, I don't want to ask any questions because I don't want to upset anybody. What do you want to do? Get into a situation that's bad, that's bad, and then you find yourself looking for another job? That's not very good. So the two questions: why are you recruiting? What happened to the former person? And what are the challenges in this job? Those are two things you really need to know, because all of it builds off that. Once you know that information, then you can start collecting additional research. Marketing reps that you might know or dealt with in your previous job that might call on that client, you can talk to them. Maybe, if you just say, hey, I want to have a confidential call with you. What do you know about that organization? There's been some rumors they might be having some problems. Seems to be some turnover. Is everything okay there? You might want to look at the regulatory filings. You can get every year they have to file the reports with the IRS if they're not for profits. And as long as they're not government hospitals, you can get quite a bit of information. It's probably 1.5 to 2 years old, but you can even look and see what the senior executives are being paid. Now, it's important if you get information about you read information in the paper, or you're able to get some really good intelligence about operational challenges. How you use that information is as critical as understanding the specific challenges. I have seen candidates that had great information but didn't understand exactly the context and embarrassed themselves in an interview. So when you go in for an interview, you're always asking questions. You're being asked questions, but you're always asking questions. Ask additional questions in the early process. The recruitment process is not a one-way street. And I guarantee you, I'm about 40% of the time, I'd ask people after sending them all this information, and we go through this big interview, I'd say, well, now what questions do you have? Oh, you've answered all mine. Those people rarely ever advanced in the search. You need to have more information, because that's going to allow you to do a better job connecting your strengths, your successes, your values, your relevant experience to help them solve a problem. Can you make a compelling case? If you don't think you are a right fit for the organization, don't waste your time, okay? There's other jobs out there. You got to avoid the mindset. This is kind of another way to look at it. Who I am and what I've accomplished, okay? You need to be confident that you are the answer. You don't need to be bragging, I can solve your problem. I can do this. I've done this tons of times. No, talk to them about their problems, not what you've done. You want to get that in, but you want to talk to them in the context of what their problems are and how you can help them solve it. As you answer their questions, if you answer their questions, you need to ask questions. And a great technique for getting more information, when you say something, they say, well, what kind of culture do you prefer? Well, tell me about the culture here. And sometimes they'll just give you a sort of a very curt statement and say, that's really interesting. Tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more. The more information you can get, the better qualified. Now, you don't want to beat that to death. You want to be judicious. You want to use good judgment. But you clearly need to have information, because that information is going to allow you to show them how you can solve their problem. Look for opportunities to show the interviewer how you would approach the issue. And keep in mind, you've got all these strengths, you've got great accomplishments. Look for ways that you can connect with them. Don't make them try to figure it out themselves. I once had a client, he was a perfect fit for a job. He had done the 4 things that he was solid in these 4 areas. That was exactly what this client needed. And when he didn't get the job, I said, what the hell went wrong? And he said, well, I answered all their questions. And I said, well, did you close the deal? And he said, close the deal? What do you mean? I'm no salesman. I said, yeah, you are. Yes, you are. Did you close the deal? Did you tell them, hey, well, before I leave, I want you to remember now, I've done these 4 things successfully. I've addressed each one of the issues that are your central issues. I've done this before. Here's how I did it. And he said, well, it's all on my resume. I just assumed they read it. Don't make that kind of silly mistake. I could have said something bad there, because that kind of mistake costs people jobs. And that's where the job's won or lost. It's not won or lost with your resume. It's not won or lost because you wear great looking suits and have good haircut, which I don't currently, but I'm taking care of that. But anyway, it's about your ability to show your strengths and your accomplishments, and show them how you can solve their problems. Educate, reassure, be confident. Show them with your focus that you are the answer. That's really, really, really important. Now, never end an interview without a reaffirmation of your ability to succeed in successfully addressing their challenges. Now, in that context, you got to be specific about your interest in the position, in becoming a productive leader of their team. You got to tell them you want the job, but you got to couch it in terms of, I really like what I'm hearing. I'm confident, based on my experience and my skill sets and my accomplishments and my relevant experience, that I can make a really positive contribution here. And I would really, really welcome the opportunity to be part of this team, okay? Or to lead this team, whichever the case may be. Now, do not make it easy for the employer to settle for the undisclosed internal or lesser qualified local applicant. Now, I want to tell you something. There's been a lot of this happening lately. It's epidemic across the country. And that is, people are applying for jobs and they're asking about, are there any internal candidates? It's okay. Don't be shy about asking for that, because sometimes that can be a time-wasting search. You might want to do it anyway just for the experience. But the truth is, right now, a lot of times they're hiring lesser qualified local candidates, or somebody that they don't know but has the MGMA or the FACHE or whatever. They're in the area. They're not going to have to relocate anybody. Everybody says they're great people and they understand us, so we'll just do that. That's settling. And a lot of times those people create more problems than the organization had when they started the search. So you've got to make it very difficult for them to do that. You have a right to know that information. Are there any internal candidates? Are there any candidates that are local? Because that will help you understand. Right now, the mindset is hire internal or hire local, whenever possible. And that's happening a lot. And I will tell you, some major search firms out there with big time names are being jerks about this, because they're not disclosing this to their applicants. And it's happened to some really great, talented, smart people. In one case, they were told, the recruiter knew that there was no chance that they were going to hire somebody outside their area. And yet he refused to disclose that to the applicant, to give the applicant the right to withdraw. Because what the applicant did is then continue to invest time and effort and emotional equity in trying to get that job when there was no way they were going to offer it to them. And that's just unethical. It's crappy. Yes, I know recruiters want to keep their panel together. It's like an elk trying to keep all of his cows together, his little herd, that's their job. And I get that. I did that for 27 years. But let me tell you something. Don't assume that the recruiter is going to do the right thing. They are not in the business to do the right thing for you. They're in the business to do the right thing for the client. And what makes them look good to the client will help them sell more work to that client. It's all about the money. It's all about the deposit of the commission. So you have to be aware of that. A line that I like to use that is so appropriate in recruiting today, in job search today, is that the person by your side may not be on your side. And that's from Steve Harvey. Okay, the formula for success, I've said this before, but it's really central. You have to do your research. Try to get as much information on the organization as you can. Do a deeper dive to really prepare yourself. Break out we have a core and categorical form. We have some other forms that are downloadable for our members. And you can then help yourself anticipate questions and prepare the interviews. Then take questions. Every time you're interviewed for a job, you're probably going to, if it's a senior level job, you're probably going to go through 3 or 4 interviews. Every time you're interviewed, make a list of the questions you're being asked. Because as you go through your career, those are questions that are going to come back up again. So now you're building your own catalog that's going to give you a leg up on everybody else. Okay? Research, prepare, and then rehearse. Now people say, oh man, I feel so awkward doing it. Oh yeah, you want to feel awkward. How about going in and making a fool out of yourself in an interview because you stumble, stutter, and fumble and stumble into the end zone? No, prepare, rehearse. This is big time now. What worked 10 years ago, that's Bush League. It's not going to happen here. There are more people looking for jobs than there are jobs at the management and executive level. Somebody told me the other night they spent an hour and a half getting their resume customized for the job, getting all the keywords in place, using all the language they use from the job summary. Then they had to fill out an application that took another 45 minutes or almost another hour. By the time they uploaded it, it was almost 2 hours into the deal. And then something rare happened. They got an acknowledgement message from the employer. Thank you for submitting your resume. Your application was number 459. He said, I almost wanted to cry. I need to find a job, and this is what I'm having to put up with. Well, he's having to do that because he has no network. A network, that is going to be people who can take you through the side door, not through the computer, which the odds are against you so incredibly bad. If you probably knew them, you'd probably cry. You probably wouldn't want to do it, but you have to if you don't have a network. By the way, it's 150 to 201 on average. And so you need to do these things. You need to research, you need to prepare, you need to rehearse. These actions, I can always tell when somebody has done this because they were confident. And guess what? Confidence breeds self-awareness. Self-awareness allows you to read the room. Self-awareness allows you to be a little bit on top of the game. You know what answers you prepared for. They may not ask you those exact questions, but because you've done so much preparation, you're not going to stumble, fumble, and mumble trying to come up with an answer. And oh, by the way, when you are if you have a glitch or two in the past where you've been laid off or been fired, where you made a mistake, hey, congratulations. Join the free world. A lot of people out there who've become extremely successful made terrible mistakes earlier in their career. But don't go to that interview without a great answer for that mistake. And it usually ends with, now, let me tell you what I learned from that and why I can assure you that'll never, ever happen again. That's the kind of, you got to be responsive. People say, nope, I don't talk about my mistakes and I don't talk about my weaknesses. That's just a great way for a recruiter to say, I don't want to deal with somebody that's that emotionally, immature, that's so afraid of talking about their weaknesses that they don't have any confidence in themselves. And when you're dealing with somebody that doesn't have a lot of confidence in themselves, I'm always reminded of Ted Lasso's great line in the season 1. He said, it's kind of tricky trying to talk to somebody and hear somebody when they don't have a lot of self-confidence. So, that's why you go through this process, and that's why you must be oriented toward the needs of the client. Be self-aware allows you to focus on the employer, to be the best version of yourself. See things from the employer's perspective. Don't get caught up in your perceptions. So I hope this has been helpful information. If you have any questions, just drop them in the chat. It's been great being with you. We're continuing to develop our career community. Now, at the end of the year, this kind of program will be for members only. This is not an expensive program. Members get access to all of our educational programs, all of our resume training. They get discounted coaching, and they do the discounted coaching. We also have online on-demand coaches. So how do we do coaching or mentoring for career service? Right now, if you become a member, every month you're a member, you have 6 free hours of coaching you get as a new member. And that's an offer that expires at midnight on December 31st. So become a member in John G. Self's. It's called Your Career Community. It's a program we're really confident will be a great boon for people. It'll allow you to stay in touch with people even after you get your job, because in today's marketplace, getting a job is tough, but keeping one's even tougher with all the competition and all those other issues. So when we do coaching, if people hire, some people we have a program called DFY, Done For You. We do everything for them. We put together their resume, we organize their LinkedIn profile, we'll restructure that. If they want to put up a web page, they will have to pay the cost, but we will get somebody, we have people who can do it as part of a fee. We do weekly postings. We keep the sites up to date and help you build your network. We help you build a career plan. We help you put together your value brand statement. We help you put together all those things, and then we stay with you and keep you moving in the right direction. A lot of people now, because a lot of organizations are trimming back and they're cutting down back spaces, a lot of people are doing 2 or 3 functions. I know some hospital people now, it's not uncommon for a CEO of a community hospital to be CEO of 2 or 3 community hospitals. And so they're running like crazy. And so we have a client that it's a done for you process, and that's more expensive. But you can get normally, if you hire a transition company or an outplacement fee, if it's paid by your employer, one of the big firms, they're probably going to pay them $3,000 to do it, and you're going to have X number of coaching sessions. You're going to have X number of times when you can call in, and they have some pretty stringent rules about that. In our organization, you get 1 hour a week coaching if you're paying at the regular, the full rate for that kind of service. But if you're in the career community, where you're paying $49 a month, you may not need coaching every week. So when you need a coaching deal, it's not $250 or $300 an hour or $400 an hour. It's $125 an hour. So I believe that's the right number. So that's how we do it. I've been coaching people for a long time, and for 10 years, I taught the interviewing course for a major professional association that's global in scope. I think they have 50 or 60,000 members. I taught the course they have an annual Congress, and every year I taught the course on interviewing skills course for about 9 or 10 years over the last several years. And so that's, I am very much an empathetic coach, and I'm very much a cheerleader coach. Looking for a job is really hard. It's harder to find a job than doing the job you had. And that's kind of a unique situation. Now, tomorrow morning at 7:30 on Career Live, we're going to be talking about that very issue, how to organize your day when you're doing a search, and something called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. Do you need to sweat the small stuff? Well, I hope you'll join us tomorrow morning for that. I want to thank you tonight. And listen, if you have any questions, you can go to my website, johngself.com. And at the bottom, there's a tab. It says Talk to John, and you can schedule a free, no obligation question session. We're not going to try to sell you anything. It's not going to be high pressure. I love what I'm doing. We don't do any aggressive emails. We do content marketing, and people come to us because they've heard about us. They know that I had a great reputation as a recruiter. in 23 years, I didn't have any mishires on the CEO level. So I was pretty good at that. I loved it. I love coaching. I love working with people and helping people get their position locked up. It's really hard. It's not a quick process anymore, but that's why we're in it. And when somebody joins up with us, we stay with them. It's not a 90-day program. We stay until you land. So cheers, everybody. Have a great evening. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And hopefully we won't have the same problem with the audio tonight. And thank you, sir, for helping me identify that problem. Thanks, everybody. Take care, and we'll see you soon.